All right, so today we're going to break down one of the most intense, grueling challenges I think has ever been put on YouTube. We're talking about Mr. Beast and his crew getting stranded on a totally deserted island. Their only way out? To build a boat from scratch and sail back to civilization. It's like a classic survival story, but, completely supercharged for today. And boom, right out of the gate, this one line just sets the entire tone. From the very beginning, this wasn't positioned as just another fun video with friends. No, this was framed as a genuine life-or-death mission against pretty much impossible odds. The stakes were set right then and there. So let's dive into it. Section 1, an impossible mission. The premise sounds simple enough, right? A bunch of guys on an island, they gotta get off. But the execution? Absolutely monumental. We're talking stuck in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with basically one job: find your way home. And this really puts the sheer scale of the task into perspective. They weren't just, trying to survive by finding coconuts. They had to become engineers and boat builders overnight. And that's what's so compelling here. This insane level of ambition colliding with, well, a total lack of experience. And their lives really did depend on it. Which, of course, brings us to the question that literally everyone watching is thinking. I mean, with a plan this crazy, you have to assume there's at least one person on the team who knows what they're doing, right? Like a secret sailing expert? And there's your answer. A simple, almost terrifying no. That one word just sends the stakes through the roof. This wasn't a team of experts. These were YouTubers attempting something that would challenge seasoned professionals, and they were going in completely blind. So that brings us to Section 2, surviving the island. Because building a boat was a distant dream at first. Before any of that could happen, they just had to endure the island itself, an environment that honestly felt like it was actively trying to take them out. And the dangers here were no joke. It wasn't just the crushing heat or the fact they were constantly running low on water. The jungle was literally filled with some of the most venomous snakes and spiders on the planet. Every single time they went to look for materials, they were taking a huge risk. And this quote from Nolan just makes that misery so real. It's not some abstract danger anymore. You can almost feel it. It's that constant, itching, painful reminder of just how awful their situation was, grinding them down physically and mentally every single second. So here's the kicker, and the irony is just incredible. Their entire plan for a high-tech escape hinged on finding the right kind of garbage. Seriously. Their survival literally depended on ocean pollution. Washed-up barrels and old plastics became the most valuable treasure they could possibly find. Okay, so they're surviving, just barely. And that brings us to Section 3, the Great Build. This was the real heart of the whole thing. This is where we find out if teamwork, pure ingenuity, and a whole lot of brute force could actually turn a pile of junk into a boat that could sail. And they were smart about it. They broke this impossible task down. They started with a tiny model just to see if the physics would even work. And then came the absolute back-breaking labor of hauling bamboo, finding barrels, and tying hundreds of knots, just praying it would all hold together. This wasn't just building, it was this relentless, exhausting marathon against the clock. And this was the moment everything changed. After days of just grueling work and gnawing doubt, they put the frame in the water and it floated. You can just feel the relief. It was this massive shift in morale. For the first time, hope felt real. The impossible suddenly seemed possible. And now for Section 4, Voyage into the Unknown. The boat is built. The team is totally wiped out, but they're hopeful. The only thing left to do is launch their makeshift creation into the open ocean and face the final boss, Mother Nature herself. So their biggest enemy out on the water wasn't a shark or a storm. It was this channel. You can think of it like a powerful, invisible river inside the ocean that had its own ideas about where they should go. And it wasn't toward their destination, it was just trying to pull them sideways out into the empty Pacific. You can hear the pure urgency in Hars's voice here. He knew that the only thing fighting against the massive, indifferent power of the ocean was their own raw muscle. It was this primal battle, human willpower versus the raw force of nature. 7 hours. Just let that number sink in. By the time they were really in the thick of it, fighting that current, they had already been rowing for 7 straight hours. Their bodies were already at the breaking point before the hardest part even began. And this is the brutal reality of that struggle.
It wasn't some heroic movie scene. It was seasickness, dizziness, and just total mental exhaustion. The whole crew was hitting their absolute physical limit, miles from any shore, totally exposed to the elements.
Which brings us to the final section. So close, yet so far. After hours and hours of fighting, they somehow punched through the channel. Victory was literally in sight. But the ocean, well, it had one last cruel twist waiting for them. Just look at these numbers. 11 hours of nonstop punishing rowing. They had been at it for nearly half a day, and they were just half a mile from shore. They could see the beach. They were that close. And here's the devastating heartbreak of it all. The tide, the same force that had helped them escape the first island, had now turned against them. It created this invisible wall between them and their goal. They were paddling as hard as they could, and they were actually moving backward. In that line, it just captures the crushing weight of that moment. That's the collective realization that after all the pain, the ingenuity, the teamwork, and just the sheer force of will, it wasn't enough. They had failed, right at the finish line. So after watching all that, seeing them pour every last bit of energy into this, only to fall agonizingly short, you gotta ask, what's the point? What do you even learn from getting that close, only to lose? Well, here's the answer, straight from Mr. Beast himself. For him, the takeaway isn't despair, it's fuel. The pain of this loss immediately gets turned into a promise for the future. It's such a perfect window into the relentless mindset of someone who has built an empire on just pushing the limits. Ultimately, yeah, they lost the challenge, but the attempt itself was just staggering. It shows that even when you fail, pushing yourself to the absolute brink reveals something really profound about what you're capable of. And maybe that's why we watch. It leaves us with a question, right? How do you define success when the journey is everything, even if you never quite reach the destination?